Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about Polyglot Aspire. I'm a big fan of Aspire. I've been following it and kind of interacting with it since day one. But my name is Chris Ayers. I'm a principal software engineer at Microsoft, as Lee said. I work in NJOPS. So inside of Azure, there's a team called NJOPS. And so we're where a lot of the SREs are. We look at outages, we look at incidents. I'm actually part of Azrael, so the focus is on Azure reliability. Um, and I'm in the risk team. So I look at the outages that happen and try to identify risks that have surfaced, risks that might be out there. Um, and internally, I'm using Aspire every day. Like we are building internal apps with Aspire, deploying all the way to production. I'm actually kicking off a major project at work coming soon, trying to help do some additional internal security and quality improvements to Aspire. So, like, it is awesome working with the Aspire team, and it's really an amazing set of tools. Um, and the problem that exists for all of us as devs, and I think this is not just if you have multiple language. This can be if you have just .NET or just Python or just whatever. Um, you've got all sorts of different services, and they each need to be orchestrated slightly differently. Maybe you .NET run one, maybe you do a Docker run on a container, maybe you're using Compose for some things, maybe you're running a web service and you're just referencing the web service. And so I'm sure you have. I've had multiple little terminal windows open with like 5 different services all started, and I'm copying IPs and I'm pasting them into my config of my next one, trying to get everything to talk together. And this is the problem. Like for my dev inner loop, it's a nightmare as is with just some Docker images and some .NET services and a back end and a front end. It gets worse when you start having multiple languages, trying to do it with Python or Go or Java or React front end. And so, if you do start working with maybe let's just keep it to two. Like you got a .NET backend and you got a React front end instead of something like Blazor. Um, Now you have to deal with .env files. You have to deal with kind of understanding how some of the different tool chains work. Are you putting it in an app settings YAML? Are you putting it in a JSON file? Is it a property? Um, how do you get the logs? Are you just kind of clicking through your different terminals and scrolling up to see where it was? Um, do you have a different README and a different install chain for each one? It's just pain. And I think Aspire really is the polyglot answer, but it's also our dev inner loop. It's the solution to a lot of our dev problems that you might not even realize you had. This is like the way to think about cloud first development and gives you great tools to deploy distributed applications. Um, I know there's now a CLI, there's the Aspire CLI, and I can just do Aspire run. And it doesn't matter if I have 5 or 10 components, if I have a front end app running NPM, I have a back end app running .NET, if I've got some Azure services I'm talking to, like a storage account or even OpenAI, I don't have to worry about it. Aspire Run does it for me. I can just focus on configuring Aspire, and I can have the rest of the configuration kind of flow through my system to the various components as they're needed. And I have an observability plane I didn't have before, living in OpenTelemetry hotel. So I just have to worry about configuring one thing, and I get visibility across how the different bits are all talking. Now, Aspire really brings you four major components that we'll talk about. There's a CLI where you can create and run and deploy projects. There's the AppHost, which is the orchestrator that is where all of our different bits and how they connect live. There's a dashboard that gives us runtime visibility and all the logs and everything. And then there's the integrations, which is where we can spin up additional components, cloud integrations, local integrations. I'll even show you one of my other projects, which is a completely different talk that I'll touch on, for being able to go from local AI on device to a cloud AI solution with changing a config value and not having to change any of your code. So there's all sorts of different options for how Aspire helps make your lives a little easier. And like I said, really any language, even like Docker, we can all wire all of these things up through Aspire and just have our application modeled in one spot and orchestrate the entire stack. And I'll talk about service discovery and I'll talk about observability a little bit. So this would be an example of our AppHost. So I can say, hey, I would like to use a Redis. So builder add Redis. I'm gonna give it the name cache. That is on my machine, potentially going to spin up Docker. And or if I have Docker, it'll run it in a Docker container. And if I deploy it out, I can run it in a Docker container, or I can substitute it for like an Azure Redis. I can say, hey, I need a Postgres database. This will spin up my Postgres database and give me a database for app data. I can do a Python service, and then I can give it a reference to my cache. So that'll handle whether it's a connection string or an IP or some other endpoint reference. Like that'll handle that. I can have a front end app like Vite, and I can give it that reference to my database. I can add a .NET project and reference the other things. So in one AppHost, I can orchestrate, and here you can see I'm orchestrating Docker containers, Python, front end, and .NET. So I'm not, and then I can generate my ARM or Bicep for Azure, or I can do containers. It gives me a lot of capabilities. And then I can bring up my dashboard and see how things are running. So before I get too far along, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a sample, and I'm going to go ahead and run a TypeScript sample. And this is going to spin up an AppHost and start my dashboard. So this is the Aspire dashboard. Now, this is running a app in Node and a backend in Node. And you can see it did a node install command, but I can come over here and I can see the logs from that. And I can start switching back and forth between my various resources and see the logs from them. I can dig in and look at the details. So I can see where it's running from, the executable it was running with, and start seeing some of the references and environment variables that are being injected, including OpenTelemetry. So I can start seeing some of the OpenTelemetry parameters being passed and sent around all through here. And that's nice for a TypeScript. You go into .NET and do the same thing. Excuse me. And we're going to dig in a little bit more. We'll dig into the code and all in a moment. So you can see here we have a few more bits, and we've got a Kafka Docker image that started up. We've got some Python. We've got nodes. We've got all these consumers and producers running. And this producer, you can see we had we had some errors. Our brokers were down. It looks like it's resolved itself now. We can look at our dashboard, but I want to just dig right in. I can look at individual messages. I can dive in. I can pause my log so it's not scrolling. I could switch to my messaging. So I can dig into, in one spot, see all of the different components available to me throughout my system. And I can look at the errors. I got structured logging as well. So I can come in here and dig into the individual resources. I can look at my traces to see, what were the call times. So these are automatically generated for you. You don't have to dig in and build these in a lot of cases. And then you're getting the stack as well. So I can look at the metrics that are coming straight out of .NET. And I don't know how many of you have tried getting some of this visibility very quickly. Without Aspire, without a lot of the wiring to help you out, a lot of this is very painful. It takes a little bit of configuration. You have to start some background things. So Whoops, I didn't mean to click that one. Sorry about that. It just causes some pain. Um, and so like I can dig into all the various stats that are being exported out of the .NET runtime. Like all of these are base metrics. Um, so really powerful, awesome services. And we could even make a new one. So if I can go into the new sample, I want to do Aspire new, and I'll say the Aspire starter. And I'll just go ahead and put it here. Now go ahead and create a test project also, and I can pick what I want to use. Let's say XUnit, say 3. And it'll pull down our latest projects and create one. And it also has agentic capabilities in the project. So, and I'll talk about what those are just to help you uh, integrate skills if you're doing skill coding into your solutions, including an MCP, so that if you need to start building some integrations, you can. So, or adding integrations. So let's just take a look real quick at our .NET project that we get right out of the bat. I talked about the AppHost. This is our full AppHost for our project. I'll make that just a little smaller. So we've got our project for our API service, and it has health checks, which I think all projects should have. We've got our web front end, and it also has a health check, and it depends on the cache, and it depends on our API. That is our orchestration. I do want to point out, we say cache here, and we say API service there. And if we go look in our API service, there's something cool that I want to show you. So we come down, where is it? I'm sorry, that I didn't put it in the API service. I put it in the web service. So if we come down here, our weather client, notice it says API service. So we don't have an IP. We don't have a weird port. We don't have anything. We have this weird construct as HTTPS, HTTP, but we're referencing the API by name. So we're not referencing it by port, so we don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. And the way this works, the way the magic works on all of these things is really going to be in this service defaults project. And service defaults gives you all sorts of really cool stuff. This is where all of your projects get OpenTelemetry and health checks and service discovery, and we get resiliency. So it'll do retry. And then because it's just, it's code that you can configure, you can go and override all this stuff. If you want to change how OpenTelemetry works, if you want different metrics, you can do that. If you want gRPC instead of HTTP, you can configure that. If you want to use Azure Monitor, if you're running in Azure, you can do that. So all the code's here, and you can modify it and tweak it however you want. And let's just go ahead and start this. And I'm doing dot at the end. Normally you don't have to. I'm doing dot because I have like 5 different Aspire projects in the same repository, and it'll look and find multiple. So I'm doing dot to just limit it to the one current one. So there we go. We got these things running. I can go in and look at my details and see the references here and see this connection strings cache. So this is that convention that is injecting that cache name into the solution. So it's discovering it by name through these environment variables, through this convention. And so as we look at some of the other integrations through Python, through Node, you're going to see this type of pattern of like either a services underscore thing, or you're going to see something like this connection strings thing. And all this information is available out on like aspire.dev. Aspire.dev is where all of the really cool documentation is. They've got foundations and getting started, and we're going to dive into more of the integrations. So let's just keep going. Now, if you really like the dashboard and you like the logging and you like everything, you can run that dashboard on your own. You can just run it as a standalone Docker image and then just get to pass in the port that you want the services to listen to or to write to, and you'll be able to use the dashboard on its own as like a telemetry endpoint. Like it's really awesome. So you can ship that, you can play with that today. If you're already doing OTel and you don't want to like send it out to a service somewhere. Like in Node, for instance, or in JavaScript, if we need to do OpenTelemetry, if we want consistent logging, this is the standardized OpenTelemetry logging package. Like we just need the trace exporter and the environment variable for the URL we want to send it to. Now, Aspire will help you do that. Aspire will help you build the deploy, but for the most part, you just need the trace exporter on a Node application. For Python, yeah, same thing. This is a standardized OpenTelemetry. So just pulling in those OTel packages and setting up a trace and span processor, it'll pull in the environment variables for the endpoint to monitor it. So just a little bit of code on the Python side or the Node side to add those type of endpoints to get that centralized logging for all your traces and metrics. Pretty much whatever you're trying to do, the AppHost is the thing that manages all of the spinning up the process. It's this thing called the developer control plane. That's what AppHost talks to. And our dashboard is really where we're going to try to funnel all of the information, whether it's a Docker image or an Azure emulator or a different service. I kind of showed you these already, these patterns. If you guys have seen any sort of real details about how .NET config works and how we try to manipulate .NET environments and configurations, if you do .NET configuration, and look out in the documentation for .NET configuration. I like showing people how a lot of these things kind of bubble in. If we come down to environmental variables and stuff, like when you pass in environment variables, sometimes we have nesting. And so you're going to start seeing these type of things. These environment variables get passed right into .NET, and I just need to find the double underscore. There it is. So this is what's happening. Like these type of double underscore logging underscore log, that's getting pulled by .NET automatically and helping configure those services, and then going to that service defaults to drive configuration. And so we're just keeping that same pattern as we talk to other languages and other services. So name, protocol, index. And they're kind of automatically wired in. That's how we're going to do it in Python. We're going to do it in Node. We're going to do it in Java or Go, and then .NET just automatically picks it up. Connection strings are very similar, and it's using that name. That name cache or DB or messaging, whatever we kind of put into the name of our app host, that's what we're going to see as we reference the service. So we get the same pattern. That's going to be, it makes it really easy. And another cool thing that we get out of Aspire and out of processes is we get to control the lifecycle. So if I go back to here, you can see this is running. I can actually stop a service right from here, and I can restart it, and it'll do running unhealthy. And then I actually have the capability. So we can actually add additional options here. So we can drive these type of options, but you'll get like start, stop, and rebuild. For databases, we could do things like flush database, or we could seed with sample data. So as a developer experience, like me being able to come in here and very quickly control the different components and be able to spin them up and start them and stop them, make a change, restart it, is super powerful. And by default, with service defaults, we try to encourage everyone to have health checks so that we can monitor that something is bad and that we can restart it. Now you can use a normal AppHost project like this, where we're going to have a distributed app, but now there's also TypeScript. So if you want to have a TypeScript app host, you can do that TypeScript app host as well. And so it's a very similar pattern. We're builder add Redis, we're adding the AddPythonApp, we're running things. And that's actually the sample you're going to see here in this TypeScript app host. You can see we're bringing in OpenTelemetry, we're awaiting a builder, we're adding a Node app with HTTP endpoints. We can publish our container files. So this type of style, this type of pattern is what Aspire kind of brings. And so we can use our full AppHost projects. We can also use single file AppHost in C#. So if you want to not have to have an AppHost project, you can have an AppHost CS file so that you can just have that in the root of your project without needing a whole separate project. They all use the Aspire type system on the TypeScript side. And so, yeah, we can pretty much add anything. And if I go back to the Aspire documentation, to the integrations, you were just talking about doing on-device AI. Well, what if I wanted to use Ollama? Well, we can. There's also an Aspire community toolkit, and we'll dive into that more. But for almost every one of these type of integrations, whether it's a compute integration or an Ollama integration, there's a hosting integration. So this is the thing that you kind of want to interact with. And so you can see it in different ways here. There's things that you want to interact with on the app host where you're setting up the service. Like I want to add Ollama and I want to add a model and I want to pass that reference into my project. So you're going to have the hosting integration. And this will actually pull down the Docker image and pull down the model and run it. And then you can have like persistent data volume. So you can control some of the things inside of the Docker, how it's running. And you can give it GPU support. You do all those things. But if you want to consume it in your application, that's where you're going to need to maybe add a client extension, and then you can say, hey, I want to add the Ollama thing, and I'm using the same name. I'm using names based upon the model, or I'm adding keys to it. Let's look at that Redis example, for instance. So if I want to set up in my app host, we've already seen it a couple times. We've seen add Redis cache. And then TypeScript, add Redis cache. So it's a very similar pattern, very similar language, slight difference in syntax with the await or const, but that's how we're adding it to our app host, and that we'll pull it down and we're going to add the reference. It's going to be the same behavior in both. But if we want to connect to Redis from our client, we can bring in the Aspire Stack Exchange Redis. So Stack Exchange Redis is one that you might already be using. It is the open source or community package. But when you add the Aspire one that's referenced here, this kind of wraps the normal package just to add additional OpenTelemetry, to add the service discovery capabilities, so that you can just say, add a connection cache. And then you get your normal stuff. You get your normal dependency injection for connection multipliers. So it adds that service discovery capability and the observability capability that you might not have right out of the box. Let me go back one sec. So the other thing besides all of these, and there's like running it in Docker, we have, say you want to do, like I said, Postgres. There's the hosting side and the community and the connection side. I do a lot in Azure, obviously. And let's say I want to use the storage account. Like I want to do some storage. Well, there is a storage emulator available for C#. So and you can use the CLI to add storage. You can use C# AppHost, it's a single file. You can use a whole project. All of these work. And I'm just going to say add blob storage, add Azure storage. And then I can say, hey, I would like blobs with this name. Or I want certain containers. So I can start structuring these whenever I want, and then I can add emulators. A lot of times with AI, I'm using Extensions AI, I'm using the Microsoft Agent Framework. And so I want something to store my conversations. And I'll use Cosmos. I'll add Cosmos DB. But I don't want to spin up an Azure Cosmos out of the box, so I'll probably run as an emulator. And if I'm on a Mac, there's a lot of times I need to use the preview emulator. That works better on Linux and Mac. But we're using an emulator, and it will spin up a Docker image, and I can even override the gateway. I can say I want multiple partitions. I can have a persistent data volume so that when I stop my application and I restart it, the data volume will stick around. I can stop my app host, and I can leave the Docker Cosmos emulator continuing to run. So yeah, this is the Linux-based one. So this is what you need to run on Mac and Linux usually, the preview emulator. But then we can also point at existing Azure resources. So if you've spun up Azure resources, I see your hand, Lee, one sec. If you have existing Azure resources, you can point at them and use them and talk to those existing resources, which is really great if you're trying to do like AI, like you're trying to do a Foundry or you're trying to do a OpenAI with chat models and versions. You can use existing models. So Lee, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just I was just curious. With the with emulator, seems like something you would only do in your development environment. Is that something you need to like if-def out?
Nope.
If you are.
Nope. No, that's a great question. That's a great question. So, and we can actually look at some of those, but for the most part, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but if I think it says it right here, it configures it to run locally, but it also has like some checks inside of it. So there's the idea of a run mode and a publish mode. And so when you're running it locally, it won't, it'll use the emulator, but you can also do like a publish type mode where it will try to spin up Azure resources. And I'll, let me show you that. So there's the idea of, like you can actually provision stuff from your app host. But yeah, you don't need to worry about having additional if blocks around your code. Like, hey, if I'm in dev, use the emulator. If I'm in prod, don't use the emulator. There's checks already in there for you to do that. That was a really good question. Let me keep going a little bit. Yeah, so TypeScript, this was one of the big releases in Aspire 13.3 or 13.2. It's been around about 6 months, the TypeScript side of thing, and you can make your own resources, and we can integrate our own integrations, and we can use all those different types of applications. So if we like just are poking around the documentation, if we come down here to frameworks, so like if I want to do Go, well, we can set up Go. There is, add Go hosting. We have Aspire hosting Go, and we can add a Go app. If we want to do something with Java, there's a community extension for hosting Java, and we can add Spring apps. A lot of us do things with Python when we're dealing with AI. It is a first-class workload. We've got Aspire hosting Python. It used to be a community extension. It's not anymore. And you can do all sorts of interesting things. So you can give it project names. There's also Unicorn support. So if you use UV, you can do that. So you can use the UV package manager. You can use the pip package manager. You can set up custom environments. So it will automatically try to use virtual environments if you want to use those. And then like a lot of times I use Docker files for deployment, and this will help you like automatically try to generate Docker files to deploy out your app into a container if it's Python or if it's like a JavaScript or Node where you're doing maybe Bun or or JavaScript, add a Node app. Here's my front end, boom, and we can publish in different ways. So there's a ton of different capabilities for adding things. And then if you just have like a raw Docker image, for instance, that you want to run, you can run Docker images. You can run Docker Compose. So like I want to add a Redis. I want to publish it as a compose. I want to like do various things with images. So you have a lot of capabilities for all of these things. And then if it's not in Aspire, it might be in the community toolkit. And so this has just, you can see there's a ton of different things people have built. Some of them have been started to be incorporated into the main Aspire project, but if you use Bitwarden or you have some of these different MQ or SQLite, like some of these things, RavenDB or different feature flag capabilities, they might exist in the community toolkit. And then if you don't want to use the community toolkit and you want to build one of your own, you can actually build your own integration as well. So you can build your own custom hosting integration, and there's guidance and documentation here. Or even if you want to build custom clients. So if there's something that you want to play with, you can. Have you guys heard of Jeff Fritz by any chance? Jeff,
Definitely.
he's done a thing with Aspire and Minecraft, because I'm sure none of you guys have heard of Minecraft either. So he built a Minecraft resource that is actually Aspire. So as those different components spin up, as those different buildings spin, like Azure, or as those different Aspire resources spin up, it creates a building inside Minecraft. And if the resource dies or goes red, the beacon will turn red and the building will explode with dynamite. Like a little dynamite cart will fly to the building. So like custom integration, like you can build any integration you want with pretty much anything. And a lot of people today are starting to build integrations with agents and Aspire for various reasons, like A to A or MCP servers, building them as custom resources. And it's really cool. And then you'll see in the repo, and I'm going to bring up some of the samples. There's an Aspire config JSON that'll tell you like where the AppHost is. So when you do Aspire run, it'll find the thing and know the version, the type of host to run, and then you could turn on feature flags. And I'll show you why that's kind of important in a second. And just like with .NET user secrets, where you can run configuration, you can do Aspire config and list out configurations, and it'll help with dev certs as well. So if I do, Aspire config list, it picked up I'm in the Aspire starter project. It knows what that is. It's on the stable channel. If I go to a different folder, because this has a ton of different ones, like it's picking up a different project. And you can set secrets and values if you want. Now these newer commands, like if you go to get Aspire dev, there's the commands. So homebrew, if you use it on a Mac, on a brew, using npm or NuGet, like these are now like available as tools in .NET, but they're available in a lot of different systems. And then there's an install script for both Bash and PowerShell. And then you can check your version. Yeah, so I'm on Aspire 14, and what Aspire does, it has some really cool things you can do. You can actually do like an update, and it will look at your current project. You'll go, hey, I can update some versions of the NuGet packages or the Node packages to the newer components of Aspire. And then if you want to update the UI, once it's installed, you can say, I want to upgrade my UI, and it'll download the latest CLI and get the latest version of that. So I use Aspire run and start. If I've got one running, it'll so if I do Aspire run, and then I open a new terminal somewhere else, and I do Aspire PS. This is showing me that I actually have two different things running, and all of the PIDs around them, and then links to my dashboards. So, like, this is a great way to like stop things and modify things and see what's running and maintain them. So the CLI is absolutely phenomenal. There's also this agent MCP thing. So one thing I'd said was go ahead and install the agents when I did this new project. It might have been a different folder. So I was in a different folder. So yeah. So notice it has a dot agents. It has all these skills. So these got added, and let me preview that. Aspire is very friendly for being agentic. So this will help you like identify your app host, route you to different skills. It'll look at is it a C#, is it a file-based C#, TypeScript, like it'll find configs and it'll help you do things. Like if you want to start or interact, it has the right commands to execute. So the Aspire team uses Aspire and Copilot to build Aspire and to build Copilot. So this can like give you the right commands, give you the right skills. And if you're trying to set up Aspire on a brand new project, they actually have an Aspire Apply plugin that will help. And I didn't install that one, but that exists out in a repo called Aspire Skills. So when you first set up Aspire, it will actually ask you, like, what's, do you do the Aspire init or Aspire new? It'll ask you what skills you want installed. And this is one of them. And they do an Aspire Fridays and they go through here. And this is a skill to help you add Aspire to your existing projects. So you have an existing brownfield project. It'll look around and it will try to add a working app host by scanning your repo and helping wire things up and build Aspire onto your application. So there's some really cool things inside of here. And then while you're working with Copilot, for instance, there is an agent MCP server there. So that will let your agentic stuff grab resources or grab logs or traces. And so I've used Copilot or even Claude Code with an Aspire project it'll spin up a resource, it'll troubleshoot the logs, it'll stop it, make a code change, recompile it, spin that resource back up, and it can get in that loop to help you build things out. It is really powerful. I do see there's a question there about developer container support. There is a thing called Aspire samples as well. And I have done Aspire in a dev container. I'll talk to you about dev containers as well. But and you can see there is a dev container here in the repo for the things to help build out .NET using Docker and Docker and the .NET Aspire. So like, yes, people do Aspire inside of a dev container. I'm a big fan of dev containers. I got talks on dev containers. But you're going to see in here, let me just pull this repo since I haven't recently. We're just having fun. And this is the, oh, I already have it. Okay. Yeah, you can see I have a few things. So like Aspire Shop. The dream of this for everybody is you pull down and clone a new project and you do Aspire run or you start it up and it should work. This is probably an old one then if this broke. So let me pull up to date status. All right, so I have done something to break things. Let me actually read this then. Because did not read. Restored, restored, restored has a node high severity vulnerability. Okay. So that's what it was. There was some sort of warning. And I guess I picked the wrong demo. We'll just pick a different one then. Let's look at Spire with, actually, I do want to get that running. I'm really curious. I had not seen that error before, and that's really interesting. Failed to so it was failed to restore this. Huh. So that's why I had not seen that warning as error. So that is just a really bad one. Let's not do that. Let's go to a different one. And one I think is really cool is database containers and database migrations. If you haven't seen these are neat. So I will go into that sample just while it's loading. So this is database containers. So running these in a container. And let's go into the AppHost just to look at what it looks like. So we're going to set up Postgres with a database mount point and mounting various things with persistent life and like going and checking like the different data from different places. So if I go look at that of course didn't build either because of OpenAI. I'm going to double check when this repo was last touched, 8 months ago, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I think that there's this is a little old one. That's fine. That's why we have demos, so we can watch things break in real time. So I do want to spend a little bit of time because I heard you guys. I'm just gonna skip through this. I heard you guys talking about liking AI and local AI. Would you guys want to see a little bit of that potentially as well, and some capabilities?
Yeah, we've got multiple thumbs up in the room. Let's do it.
Okay, so I put the repo for this polyglot talk and samples in here. All my slides are in Markdown in the repo. Everything's actually hosted on GitHub Pages, so everything's in the open. Like go to town. This is actually GitHub Pages just redirected. It's all through a pipeline. But and I'm out on GitHub, and I do some blogging, and I do talk quite a bit about various things with security, with agents and skills, and Spire and CLI. But one of the talks I've done in the past, quite a bit, is building with Aspire. So this is actually one of my has been one of my more popular talks. I just haven't. You can see Techorama. So this was actually last year. But one of the things that I hadn't done is had a chance to update this a little bit. So some of these integrations are older, but what this has only evolved and continued to evolve since I started talking about it, which is that we have and you can see Aspire 9. We're on 13 now. So this is Aspire 9. Like I said, it's been a little while. The problem that I had was I was trying to build AI components. And sometimes you get on a plane or you're at a coffee shop and the internet's bad, or you don't want to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on AI tokens. And in those type of cases, a lot of times we're doing things like LM Studio, Llama, or even Foundry Local. And at the time, again, this was a year ago. I haven't updated this deck since then. So Lee had asked me to maybe give this talk, and I was like, I haven't updated it. But you guys seem like a friendly bunch that seems interested in this. So, we've got some capabilities that we can do locally, and then we've got those same type of capabilities we can do in the cloud. How do we bridge this gap? And so for me, the way I bridged that gap was Microsoft Extensions AI. So if you're working in .NET, Extensions AI is the thing you want to be looking at if you're not. And this is what is the agent framework is built on top of. So hopefully you guys have heard of it, know about it, but if you hadn't, Extensions AI is the thing that's going to kind of abstract all of the things away. There's this abstraction layer. And so that lets us have an iChat client, an iEmbedding, an iImage generator. We don't care what's under the hood. We don't care if it's an Olama, if it's an OpenAI. We just want to have a chat client and we want to get a response. Like that's all we care about. We have chat roles. Like so instead of us trying to roll our own chat messages or chat responses and processing strings, extensions AI kind of takes care of all of that for us. It kind of puts it spans over that. And so we can use extensions AI to talk to a local Olama and then talk to a cloud model. And Aspire helps us do that. So in Aspire, if we add Olama, and then and in our client, we just add the chat client, cool, we have an iChat client. We can iterate locally all we want. If we go to cloud, we just say add an Azure OpenAI, and we add a chat client, and in our code, we're dealing with a chat client. Notice that in both cases, we're just dealing with an iChat client. We don't care. And so Aspire helps us bridge the gap with extensions AI. This was also before Microsoft Agent Framework. This was when semantic kernel and autogen were a thing. So this was right when it was starting to be announced. So I do have that. Let me switch over to it, and we can just I'll show you what it looks like a little bit. I'll show you how we can play around with that. Again, everything is C#. So if I don't want to have all sorts of things buried in my code, like I can like interact with configuration just like I would with Aspire or .NET. I can like configure different settings like Azure provisioning, and I can do we talked about emulators earlier. If I'm in publish mode in Azure, I might want a Postgres flexible server. I might want an Azure resource for Postgres. If I'm locally, I might just want a Postgres in a Docker. That's fine. That works for me. I made my own custom extension method called AddAIModel. And I can go look around and find extensions, and I have an AI model. And I can say, hey, go get my settings and go figure out what my provider is. Is it going to be OpenAI? Is it going to be Olama? Is it going to be GitHub Models, which gives you some free chat? Or is it going to be AI Foundry? So if I'm doing that Foundry model, or was it? I think it's Foundry model. Okay, I don't have Foundry installed on here. I do have Olama installed. But so my AI provider, AI Foundry Local Phi3, cool. OpenAI, I'm gonna give it a deployment name. Now it'll spin out to Azure. Or maybe I just want to use my default, which I think is set at Olama. I had Olama as one of my defaults. It's all config driven. So like when we're config driven, we don't really need to worry about it. And what we're returning is this, like I said, custom extensions or resource builders. So I will, for OpenAI, I need to get my model version, my SKU, and add an OpenAI and a deployment form. And then I'll talk about this in a sec. Like this is super powerful for anybody doing stuff in Azure or wherever. If I want to do a Llama, I want to build a data volume and have a web UI. Let me see. I haven't run this thing in a long time, so I don't know if this will completely break because this was Aspire 9 at the time. We'll find out in a moment. Yeah, okay. It doesn't like the version of .NET I locked it to, so I need to change my global JSON. I was on 9, so I can go to 10. Let's just go ahead and go up to, let's just do 10. And let's see what happens. Who knows? But that's our AppHost. That's the part that does the wiring. Okay, so I'll fail with it. And once I have my AI model, once my AI service, my API service uses AI. Like that, this is the important part. My AI service uses AI, and then I have references for databases or MCP servers. How does my AI service use this? I added another extension method here, AI services, specifically because I needed to do the flip side. I needed to like look at my settings and go, was it a Llama chat client? Was it OpenAI chat client? Was it a chat completion, a Foundry chat client? But at the end of the day, they're all chat clients. So once you've done those one or two little things, everything else is the same. It's a chat client. I can have AI functions. So I can switch from local Olama to cloud-based development, and I don't have to change any of my code. It is all configuration driven, and AppHost funnels that down. So yeah, I haven't. Sorry, like I hadn't even tried running this guy in a while. I wasn't going to, but I figured why not. So see if this will update. So this is the Aspire update, and you'll see like this was a big jump. um, I'll go ahead and let it. Let's see what happens, and I will try that same thing in the samples over here because there's probably an update available for these because I would like to show you some of these running. I didn't even think that they wouldn't be executing. Yeah, that failed because of probably some major problems with some of those things. Let's see if this guy does the update. So that's a more minor update. Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be something going on with my machine. What was the other thing I wanted to show? Yeah, all of this. Have you guys been following David Fowler or any of the Aspire team out um, on Azure or on Twitter or any of those other places? Because if you have, they've recently been talking about how they work with Aspire and how they build it. I just wanted to David Fowler GitHub. Yeah. So I just wanted to share this because this is some of the stuff and people are doing. They're using Aspire to build their own dashboard to review all the PRs coming into Aspire. So they're actively using this tool to set up servers, set up tests, to go spin up like a review queue for people to look at. All of the things that building, they're building with Aspire. So they've got agent skills for code reviews and hosting integration authoring. And so if you come in here, you can see a lot of the reasoning and the thinking behind how they're doing stuff and eventing and hooks. So if you're kind of really curious how all of this stuff works, it's all out in the open there. It's super interesting and powerful. File issues, and yeah, see, I got to be careful because it'll like load into my Microsoft account. But there's a ton of people out there doing super interesting things with Aspire, and it has really made my life so much easier. So at work, we are building in Aspire with a React front end. We had a Python job that was running in Azure Container Apps as a job. So we had scheduled jobs for the Python app, and then we had our .NET API talking to Cosmos, and we're using one AppHost for everything. We're reading in our config for our different environments, and we're generating the bicep. which is something I can show you. So if I do like an Aspire publish, if I'm using Azure, I can actually have this spit out things. So inside Microsoft, we have some internal tooling, and we have it generate pipelines for us for Azure DevOps. There's a provider that will produce pipelines, and so I've seen people do Kubernetes manifests or Helm charts. I've seen Docker Compose being output. There's integrations with AWS. So AWS has some integrations that they've worked with us for. So if you look here, see like there's AWS. So they have their own set of integrations working with Aspire, including like how to spin up all of their resources. This is a super, like I can't speak highly enough about how it's made my life easier in the development side. And then when I'm having to deploy stuff out to Azure, not only can I run as existing or use as existing or publish, a lot of times I need to customize things a little bit, especially when we're dealing with security. Like maybe I want to tweak the SKU for a storage account. So we can use configure infrastructure. We can get into the object for the provisioner, and then we can start getting specific types. We can look by name. We can pretty much apply anything that is available with the SDK to different objects. So we can change SKU size. We can put like kinds and types. We can adjust capacity. We have some with container apps where we're running 4 instances and we're passing in the CPU and memory that we're overriding. Yeah, we do rules and we start tweaking things with IP ranges. So this is all encoded in our AppHost. And so I'm not hunting around a bunch of bicep files or Terraform files. I'm really looking at one spot, being able to use C# or TypeScript if you're more comfortable with that to configure things. So you pretty much have all of the levers you need available. Now, another thing that, and I'll go back to, well, since those aren't running properly, I will go back to the sample real quick. And let's just kind of quickly go through something. Let's say I want to do that storage account, and I want to set it up. So I can use the Aspire command here, and I can add Azure Storage, and this is going to find a NuGet package for me. It will add this package reference here. So if I take a look in code, we hide all those skills, and we go look in AppHost, I will see in the AppHost CS the added hosting storage. So that just was a handy thing for me. It still didn't add it to my code, so I can go back to the docs real quick and go, what do I need to do? I just need to add that, and maybe I do want blobs, and I would like a emulator. So I will just say, hey, I want these blobs. And I'm not going to wire things up. I want to get the emulator running. And I can actually, because I have the Aspire extension, I can run my AppHost from VS Code. And this will, just like the CLI, find it, connect it, start it, and then it will give me the links. And if I come up to my browser, there's my app. It's very quick, but you can see that the storage is starting up. Like I can watch it. It's pulling the Docker image. And because I have Docker in place, it will work with Podman if you would prefer Podman. And if I look here, I've got the Azurite storage and Redis currently running right now in my Docker. And I can see the logs for that Docker service. Now, let's say I want to try to deploy this to Azure. So let me go back here and I will move you out of the way. I'll go back here and stop that. And if we go back to the docs, just real quick for a second. And I want to look at local Azure provisioning. So this would be like I'm setting up my project and I would like it to deploy these resources just out of the box so that I can start playing with stuff. Like I do need some information and I need some user secrets. So I need to be able to set like my sub ID and my location. Or I can like put it in my dev environment. You usually don't want to check them in, which is usually why they tell you to set them as secrets. So I'm gonna just go ahead and paste those two. Those are fake secrets. Those aren't going to work, but I will go ahead and do an Aspire run and see if this does what I hope it does. We'll see in a sec. Oh, okay. So I think I need to switch it over to the publish mode. But Aspire publish. Ah, so this did something a little different now. And if we look here in our AppHost, notice it made me a bicep file this time to create my stuff. And I can actually build a pipeline. I can have it deploy this, but if I gave it valid resources and credentials, like a valid subscription ID, and then I go like allow resource group creation and stuff, Aspire will actually start trying to deploy these resources to an Azure subscription and create them. This particular case it didn't because I'm giving it some invalid stuff, but you can actually have it go and automatically create storage accounts and key vaults and things for you. So it's really powerful, and it's a great way to test when you have to do real resources. I don't know about the right now. The provisioner is mainly Bicep. I don't know if there is a Terraform one. There might be. There might be a community extension. So there's a Terraform Aspire hosting that looks like somebody might have tried to make. And so that would add Terraform template publishing. So it looks like it will try to, that somebody made this and will try to generate Terraform. So run the publisher Terraform and give it an output path. Again, not mine, community driven, but yeah, you could definitely check it out. That's the thing. It's all .NET or TypeScript. You can play with it. It looks like it has been touched in about 8 months, though. It was an alpha version. So, yeah, I hope this was helpful to everybody and that got a little taste of things. I would definitely say check out aspire.dev. Check out the YouTube channel. They have a ton of stuff out on the YouTube channel that they talk about. There's tons of events that happen out there that there's a lot of times as a .NET conference or Aspire conference. You'll see all sorts of yeah. Where was it? Aspire.dev. There we go. Aspire. So there's tons of videos here that they're will show you, and there's Aspire Fridays and all sorts of streams and shorts that are out there. So yeah, really cool stuff. I would highly recommend just playing with it. Download the CLI, set up a new project, try to Aspirify one of your existing projects. There's a lot of cool skills out there to help with that. So, Lee, do you have some questions there or some conversation that we want to have? We got a little bit of time to talk and chat.
Yeah, we got kicked out of the room at 8:30. So yeah, we got another 10, 15 minutes before we ought to start packing up. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. And again, sorry some of the demos were out of date or not working. Apologize about that. I do have, I guess I could have started one or two I do have going, but I'll do that while the questions pop up. So questions.
I'm just curious what the AWS story is like.
I have not interacted with it much. So essentially, and this is where Aspire is super extensible and you can do whatever you want with it. Um, this is where you can do the custom resources, like when you're outputting them. So when Aspire compiles and builds, it kind of adds some information about resource state. It knows these things and it generates a manifest. So there's a manifest that gets kind of built um, into the system, like it builds. And then there are other tools that can take the manifest and work with them. Let me find it because there was some other projects for deploying onto Docker, deploying onto Kubernetes. That we've got deployments onto like functions, and so there's all sorts of yeah. Like once you've done the AppHost, it's like what do you do with it, and how do you deploy it out? And that's what they did with the AWS. AWS worked with them with Aspire and integrated the CDK. And so the resources that exist when they do like publishing, they would say, go right out. Hey, there's this, Route 54 or whatever. Here's this S3 bucket. Here's this EC2. Here's how I represent it in .NET or in the SDK, and here's how I output it when I publish. So it's just hooking into those events. And then, yeah, there's also testing where you can spin up the AppHost for testing. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things to read about in the overall architecture and how all the bits work. And I do want to say C# and TypeScript are not the end. I just want to point that out. Here's a really cool sample. You saw me just set it up. I'm interacting, create a poll. I can vote. I can do things. What's really cool about this, if we like look at the details, hey, this is a Postgres Docker image. This is a container image that we've got. We've got some interesting things here, but what's cool is if I bring this up, there's not a C# AppHost. There's Python. So the end goal is not that there's just TypeScript or C#. Like you're going to be able to see, and I have some experimental flags turned on, but like Python is potentially being experimented with and coming along. There's all sorts of interesting things people are trying to build, like an AppHost in Java, for instance. Again, this is an experimental feature that's still being worked on. Like these things are still coming, but if you poke around, these feature flags exist. What about Go? So, like, doing whatever language you're really interested, whatever you want to really spend time with, however you want to run. I think that Aspire really just helps stitch together all the different bits, so I'm not spinning up 5 and 10 components and trying to wire them. I have a unified way of working locally that then I can take that and build and deploy out. And that's what we're doing inside Microsoft. We're using Aspire for all newer services and things that we're starting to build. Like it really accelerates all the things we're doing on our teams and on other teams. So sorry, I can't give you more, Lee, on the CDK side. But yeah, integrations, cloud providers, AWS, and they have all of their document here. Cool.
In the weeds question. Okay, we got a in the weeds question. Hang on a second.
Okay. Yeah, external Helm charts. Right. What you got?
It's not
check.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too complicated. So about I think it was 9 months ago, I was using it, and I had a requirement that if I put the Postgre connection string into a dev secret, I wanted to go to the cloud where we had our Postgre instance. Sure. And sometimes
Sure.
I just want a local one.
Sure.
And at the time, I was having the devil of a time trying to figure that out. And I'm just wondering if there's a good pattern to follow today.
Yeah. So you can, again, it is just .NET. So you could have a you could have a flag around it. You could have an extra variable that helps override it. In addition to and where was it? So like connecting to just connecting to a server resource. Where's the configuration? Connection properties. There we go. Like if you didn't want it to like if you want it to connect locally, sometimes you can just do it in your code. Like you could pass an environmental variable that is set to an empty string so that it's not getting it from user secrets. You can try to have a flag of like use emulator, and then in your code you could go, hey, if use emulator, you can add that property onto the thing, like use emulator. Else you can do if run mode or publish mode, like it's just C# or just TypeScript. So you can add a little bit of code and a logic and like an extra feature flag to override the existing connection string before it gets there and blank it out, or whatever pattern kind of matches your thing. It is it does kind of vary, like just based on your code base, I think, though. I hope that helped. Like the overriding user secrets is always been kind of an annoying thing, but it is and again, it's all configuration. And so I was trying to bring that. There we go. To do open recent. Okay, so like I only put, for instance, things in AppHost, like your user secrets are just like they're in AppHost here. So because .NET will spit them all out together, it'll unify them. I have a couple of samples on .NET Config about how they unify them. So user secrets is in there in the distributed AppHost. Let me find the command. There's a debug command that I'm just trying to remember. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember the exact line of code, and I know where it is in one of my demos. So that's why I was trying to just go to it, because I figured it would be a lot quicker than configure root provider select to string that. All right. Configuration precedence. That's what I was trying to think of. Debug view. Yep. Config debug view. That's what I was trying to think of. All right. So if I just did I get configuration. Anyways, my point, and I'll try to do this while we're chatting real quick. I know you got to get out of there. There's a precedence to the way configs are written, so it's just you can overwrite it. Or if I was coming in here and I had Postgre and I didn't want to do the emulator, I can go like if config.blah. Like I could say run as emulator, like I could add that just on the object itself. I could like ignore that. So that's one way to do it. That is really clear in your AppHost, like when you want to set an extra flag to turn it on and off. So sorry, I'm fiddling. You know how it is when you get put on the spot sometimes. So, but anything else?
No, yeah.
That's
that was
the thing.
awesome, man. Thank
It's
you.
not YAML, and so it's C#. So if you want to hack the C#, hack the C#. If you want to like fiddle with it, like, yeah, see, like you just fiddle with it. It's all code. You can add ifs, you can add buts, you can add random containers with random properties. Like you can publish them to Kubernetes or Docker files. Like all this stuff is there, and it's available, and it's real easy to do. I would definitely suggest just playing around. Give it a try. Thank you, guys.